stalks the streets of London. The most dreaded monster of them all strikes again, and panic sweeps the city. But two men of intrepid daring...
Good afternoon, everybody, or evening, wherever you are. I want to welcome you to the 2020 edition of October Country. My name is Jim Towns. I'm a horror filmmaker, a documentarian, and horror fiction writer now. That's a new thing since probably the last time we did this show. It's October 1st, and I wanted to start it off with something that's a classic, and it's a big part of my growing up. This is Abbott and Costello Meet Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde from 1953, starring obviously Bud Abbott, Lou Costello, a famous comedy duo, as well as Boris Karloff in what I believe is, maybe someone might correct me, the only time he ever played Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. The film is based on, obviously, it's a freestyle riff off of the Robert Louis Stevenson novella, and it was made, I think, 4 or 5 years after the release of Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. It mimics what worked in that film to some degree. It sometimes doesn't quite achieve what that film achieved to some degree. I guess you could call it the lesser inheritor of a masterpiece, but the former is a masterpiece, and this is still, a stunningly fun, enjoyable film. It's Universal at the height of its power and artistry. Great stock footage, great locations, amazing backlot stuff that really doesn't look like any other studio was doing back in the day. The story follows Bud Abbott and Lou Costello are slim and tubby, respectively, and they're constables in London in seemingly late 1800s era, very early 20th century maybe, who lose their jobs during a riot at a suffragette protest, and become, through a course of whatever, Dr. Jekyll's bodyguards, protecting him from a murderer who's on the loose, who, I don't think I'm spoiling anybody's thing, we realize is his alter ego, Mr. Hyde. Boris Karloff mainly plays Dr. Jekyll. A stuntman, to some degree, played Mr. Hyde, because Boris Karloff was about 66 at the time they made this film. It's, there's great stalking stuff in this. There's again, it's atmospheric and it's fun. There's a lot of goofiness in it, but it does achieve this thing that they had realized with Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, in that the pairing of comedy and horror is it amplifies each other. It magnifies the power of each, and it's a winning combination. At some point, Lou Costello gets turned into a giant mouse, so there's that. But he comes back. It's okay. What I kind of remember watching this on Sunday mornings as a kid was these awesome chase scenes across rooftops of London. It had this Elizabethan romantic kind of feel of it, and that's what I remember more than maybe some of the goofy slapstick like we're seeing here, obviously. The makeup, I can only assume the makeup's by Bud Westmore, who was sort of running the Universal makeup department in the 50s. It's an interesting interpretation of Mr. Hyde. It's a little bit, I don't want to call it dated or culturally insensitive. I don't know. It's a little brutish. It's a little Cro-Magnon, and I guess that's a lot of what the idea of Mr. Hyde is a retreat back to our more primal, feral, evil ancestors. And it's done pretty well. The transformations are some of them are pretty smooth, some of them are a little more rocky. Mostly what I'm really into about this film is, and this is my own personal theories, there's a scene here where you see he's in a wax museum, and he runs into a statue of Dracula. And I'm pretty sure, and I've never had any corroboration about this, but if you look at that, I'm pretty sure that's Bela Lugosi standing in as himself. It is either Bela Lugosi in what is probably the final turn of him portraying Dracula, or it is the greatest dummy that has ever been made of Bela Lugosi. It's strikingly real. The fact that he has a mustache seems a weird choice if they were making a dummy. And I also feel like at that point in his career, it probably would have been cheaper to hire Bela Lugosi for a day to stand there and pretend to be a statue than it would be to create a lifelike version of Bela Lugosi. So partially my obsession with this film comes from the fact that I do believe it is Bela Lugosi's final appearance as Count Dracula. And that's it for this first episode. We kind of ripped through that one. I'm looking forward to talking with you guys about a whole bunch of horror movies I love in the coming days of the month. I want to wish you all a happy October, and we will talk to you tomorrow. Thank you.